welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. I'm Molly Herford, and I'm not doing this podcast. I am probably writing about endurance sport, training, nutrition, and all of that good stuff.
And I'm Peter Glassford. I'm a registered kinesiologist and an endurance coach, and you are here on the Consummate Athlete, where we talk about different types of sports and movements and the people who do them.
Awesome. And this week, actually today, I have my Shred Girls Lindsay's Joyride is officially out in the world. I'm super excited about it, like to the point where I can barely talk. So if you pre-ordered it, it'll be in your mailbox today. And if you haven't pre-ordered it, you can get it now on Amazon or on shred-girls.com or wherever books are sold. So super stoked on that. Huge thank you to everyone who has pre-ordered. That means just so much to me, and I appreciate it so much. And hopefully we'll see some of you this weekend at the Joyride 150 launch party in Markham, Ontario.
Yeah, I know a lot of people I talked to this weekend at the Ontario Cup. Our mountain bike series started this weekend, and it seemed like there was some good buzz about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I keep looking at the RSVPs and the numbers are just going up, and we have tons of swag and really fun stuff planned. So it's going to be super rad. And if you don't live in Ontario, but you're interested in hosting some kind of Shred Girls hangout night, ride, talk, whatever, definitely get in touch. There's a contact form over on shred-girls.com, and would love to do more of these kind of things. Tonight, I guess, I have a ride here in New Jersey with a bunch of the NICA mountain bikers. So we're gonna shred some trails, we're gonna eat some ice cream, and we're gonna talk about bikes and books. So it's gonna be super fun. Now, today's guest, we decided would be kind of perfect for the fact that the book is coming out today. My friend Katie Macarelli is on to talk all about how to get your kids into riding bikes, or really how to get them into a sport that you love. So, while this is a very bike-specific podcast, you could also listen to it and think about it in the context of running, baseball, field hockey, whatever your sport is. But we're obviously talking all about cycling. And she has two daughters, and what's cool is one of them is on the high-performance racing track, and the other is on the, hey, I like riding bikes, I like bike commuting, and I think bikes are fun, but I have no interest in racing track. So it was really interesting kind of diving into how both of them found their way in cycling and how to have a good time with your kids riding bikes and not make anyone in the family miserable.
Yeah, I think it's tough. And I think cycling's sort of developing in a lot of ways, right? Baseball and things like that are a lot further ahead as far as children's programming, right? Whereas bikes, when I grew up, there was you just rode your bike and you'd build your own dirt jumps, and hopefully your friends were into that. So now there's huge groups, right? And you're mentioning going to the track. There's kids programs at the track. I wouldn't have even known what a track was.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and I think, for parents, it's definitely a challenge because, you want your kid to be into bikes. You want them to ride with you, but there's so much you need to remember about the difference between, a 10-year-old and you as a cyclist. One of the things we kind of talk about right in the beginning is if you have, say, a 10-year-old, their bike probably weighs about half as much as they do, whereas your bike weighs about 10% of what you do. So even remembering that when you're on a trail and, you're a little annoyed that you have to go so easy so they can keep up, just kind of putting that all into context and, how to deal with the competitive urges that, parents can get. And how to deal with the competitive urges your kids can get. Sometimes your kid is not going to be the best one out there. And how do you keep them excited about it if winning isn't, happening every single weekend? So lots of really good questions that I was really glad to have an awesome cycling mom, out there to answer. And it's really a candid conversation. I was super excited about, how in-depth we got on some of these topics that, are really tangly issues, I guess.
Yep, they're definitely tough. It's a very, very tricky subject, and I don't think there's a right way, but I think there's definitely some takeaways and things just to watch for if you are navigating that with a youngster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just some really great advice. And just before we dive into it, huge thank you to everyone who has pre-ordered Shred Girls, everyone who gets a copy, everyone who comes to an event. Thank you guys so much. It means so much to me, and it's really exciting seeing, both sides of the spectrum. Both I've heard now, little girls are reading the book and then getting excited about getting on bikes, and then some cyclists or young cyclist girls are reading it and are excited about reading. So kind of both sides of the spectrum there. And that just makes me the happiest person. So thank you all so much. And without further ado, let's dive into this episode with Katie Macarelli. Enjoy. Okay, let's go way back. How did you get into cycling?
Yeah, I'm kind of a late bloomer in terms of cycling and bike racing and just bike commuting in general. I grew up in a small town on a farm, so biking was definitely, if you were riding your bike, I've joked with people, like people stopped to ask if you were okay, or
Yep.
You would get plowed over by a grain truck, or blown off the road. But we lived on a farm, we were like 10 miles out. I can remember a couple times that my sister and I, made the trek into town, quote unquote, to go swimming or whatever, where my mom was like, you want to go do that? Have at it, and it would take like 17 hours. So then, when I was looking for colleges, grew up here in Colorado, and, I went and toured CU Boulder, and that was it. I think I looked at that school and that school alone. It was the first one. And mostly because I was blown away by the beauty of, the Flatirons. And it just struck me. My jaw dropped when I realized how many people were outside doing physical activity, like for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to be that. I wanted to do that. So I was lucky to do my undergrad there. And then actually I went back for elementary school teaching and had met a friend there that was doing triathlons. And so she kind of got me into that. She said, well, if you can swim, we found out we had been swimmers. She said, you can do it. That's the hardest part.
Yep.
So I got into triathlons probably in my early 20s, mid 20s. And then my husband and I had our 2 daughters. And so I kind of trained and did masters racing or just age group racing at that time. Sprint triathlons and Olympic throughout the time that my girls were really little, which was perfect because, I was really lucky to be a stay-at-home parent. And when I say lucky, like it was either that or, I really was lucky, but as an elementary school teacher, I hadn't taught very long. So the money for me to go back to teaching after I had my daughters, not covered it in the least, to have somebody take care of them. So it was a really easy decision for us. And one that I'm really, really thankful that, we scrimped and saved and did, like, okay, it's ramen again. Well, not ramen, but, it's pasta. Yep. Years, but it was lovely to have that time with them. So it worked out really well to do shorter distance triathlons, much like cyclocross. I tell people now, if you don't have a lot of time to train, that was perfect. It was well-rounded. I didn't get bored. I could work in little workouts here and there when they were toddlers, at the YMCA, could go for runs here and there. And it was a really good, doable distance. And then as they got a little bit older, I jumped in and thought, oh, well, maybe I'll do half Ironmans and maybe someday Ironmans, and bless everyone's heart that's ever done those things, because I did one half, and that was it. It was the Boulder Reservoir. And I remember, I probably went a little crazy on the run at the very end because I like running. I'm just not built for it, I don't think. I can go slow. I'm a happy 12-minute mile pace person. I can do that for a long time. But I definitely struggled with running. And the more I would train for this longer distance, the more I found, I really like cycling most. Mm-hmm. Swimming was easy for me. And so I just didn't really ever, I did like masters things in the morning just to, to work out, but swimming wasn't really where I needed any effort. So biking, I just kind of kept gravitating towards. And the more I did that, of course, the more run workouts I skipped. And anybody will tell you that if you're doing, a half Ironman or Ironman, you should not skip your run workouts.
Yes.
So I definitely, towards the end, was saying a little prayer, like, I promise. And I was talking to myself, aloud, like, body, if you just get me through this, I'll never do it again. I swear you and me will just ride bikes off into the sunset forever and ever. So that was kind of how I segued from triathlon to cycling predominantly.
Oh my gosh, I love the bargaining with yourself. Just do it.
Doing whatever, and it's funny because the Boulder Reservoir has all these signs around that says, like, do not get in here, and I know it's because people have gone crazy on a race or whatever, and they're like, it's so hot, I'm just gonna jump in right here to this culvert and just get pulled under and go find the Loch Ness monster. And so it was a fun day. But so that was kind of how I segued just into predominantly cycling. Was just, trying to fit it all in as a mom, and anybody with a job, can realize, like, you got to pick those things, I think, that fit your life stage, and triathlon at the time fit it. And then it became cycling fit it better. And so, I think it's fun to look back and think, I can't believe I did that. Or that was funny when I used to do those things. And I still do triathlons. I'll do like one or two a summer now with my daughters, which is really fun. We just signed up for one, the Tribella's, an all women's one coming up here in June at the Cherry Creek Reservoir. And they're excited. It's just kind of a fun one that we try to do one or two together in the summer. So that was kind of my journey.
That's awesome. You and I have very similar, I think, backgrounds in that we both started in triathlon and kind of slowly shifted into the bike racing, and I've since shifted back to triathlon and then segued back into running somehow. But I think it's just, what fits in really well with your life. So for me, it was running made sense because I was on the road for cycling with all the teams. Yeah. And I didn't have time or the ability to bring a bike everywhere. So
it's so simple and lovely. And still when I travel, like, I know, if it's Europe or wherever, it's like, bring my running shoes, like bring something to do yoga in the hotel or my running shoes, because you can always fit it in.
Exactly. So that's kind of how I ended up getting back into running. And then funny enough, now I've been coaching a lot more biking camp. So I'm probably better on the bike than I've ever been in my life. And I have no interest in going back to bike racing this summer, but
so much knowledge.
At least I rediscovered how much I like it. And I think that took me not racing to kind of remember. I think I love cycling for the activity of cycling, and I love running for the racing.
Yeah. And it's wonderful to realize that about yourself. I think so many people, especially, I'm 42 and have been around a lot of the Masters Colorado racing, cycling, and it's wonderful in a lot of ways. And I think, anybody that wants to keep racing at the highest level they can forever, more power to them. But at the same time, I look at it as like, there's a joy there that I feel is missing from a lot of athletes, and they just keep drilling it and thinking they have to do it because it's what they've always done. Which would be, sad to miss out on just the simple joy of riding your bike.
Yeah, exactly. It's so easy to get caught up in the race, recover, repeat thing, and completely forget that at one point you did this because it was fun, not to.
Fun is in that little circle somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And so on the topic of fun, now your daughter. Do both of your daughters ride?
Yeah, so we have a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old, and or actually she's 14. She'll be 15 soon. So sophomore and freshman in high school, and they both started. Obviously when we were little, when they were little, that was the crowning jewel as a parent. I laugh because I have a friend who's a ex-coworker that just had a baby, and I can remember thinking of all those things that when you find out you're pregnant and you have your baby, it's like, oh, you picture all of those things, and they don't come for a long time. Those things they take a long time, and it does go fast, as people will say. I think now it does, but at the time when they're like 4 months old and just drooling on the carpet, you think like, where is this bike riding kid that I was going to have? So we started them both young, and they both enjoyed it. So our older daughter, Isabella, is really into racing. She's on the high school mountain bike team here in Golden, Colorado, which is one of the first teams. I think it was the first team or school to make it a legitimate high school sport. So there's a lot of really neat history, and a lot of invested parents, kids, that whole thing. So she's super excited and really into it. She does a little summer program that both girls did at one point a couple years back for younger kids. So she's definitely the one that likes to race. Our younger daughter, whom I'm immensely proud of, she has declared like she is not a fan of racing. She is just wants
I like it.
But she uses the bike to go everywhere. So that to me is a massive parenting win because, last night, for instance, she's a freshman and we rarely see her anymore. Our older one's more kind of the homebody, but, we were laughing. We're like, wow, when she gets a car, we really will never see her. But I actually think that's incorrect. I think it'll be the same. Like she got home last night. It was the whole, like, just be home before dark with her bike. And it was pouring rain and like 36 degrees, as she had gone to do homework with a friend. And so I'm happy that both of them have chosen kind of their own path with bikes. But, it's whether it's utilitarian, it's racing, it's fitness, all of that can be combined into one. So, I think as a parent, especially if you like something, be careful, because you can really ruin it for your kids.
Exactly.
We tried to just let them choose their own route. And the older one did, volleyball for a little while and then came back to biking, which we were really happy about, mostly because it fit her well. She said, I really like that it's not, it's a team sport, but it's not reliant on politics. It's not reliant on, who if you made this slight mistake or whatever, you get out there and you race and it's
Mm-hmm.
you're racing yourself, you're racing against other people, but there's no one to blame and there's nowhere to hide. It's just you. So I think it's neat when kids can pick their own path and as a parent, just be careful you don't ruin that path or deviate it for your own plans, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, actually on that note, like maybe let's start on the negative side here, because I'm sure, you live in a very active area. I'm sure you've seen some of these mistakes that get kids, really disenchanted with cycling. So can you touch on any of like the big mistakes you see parents making?
Yeah. And I've made them myself for sure.
Sure.
A couple of things, it's like when they're really little, it's like anything else as a parent, you have to gauge where they're at. And you and I kind of talked about this for the article. Oftentimes, just like we do with ourselves, we overestimate our abilities or our, mood or our energy level and those kinds of things. And kids, it's just magnified tenfold. So
Mm-hmm.
they're out of gas and they are going to just go down in flames, And so it's important to know, like, hey, this is really what my child's capable of, or, hey, this isn't going well. We need to cut it, right then. Instead of, I think my generation at least was like, you're going to finish this. You're going to do it. We're not going to quit, all those things. And those things are all good. But, you can quickly make it not fun.
Yeah.
Really bad way that they won't want to pick it up again.
Yeah, definitely.
There's other things that are easier, you know, and so my husband and I remind ourselves that, okay, when you're going painfully slow on a mountain bike trail, painfully slow, like where you think I'm going to roll back down, actually, if we don't pedal a little faster, or you have to actually push your hand on your kid because they are rolling back, it's a total disaster. And you have to remind yourself, like, this will pass. This will pass. We're going to get there. Okay, so we seriously made it 20 feet today. 20 feet. We made it 20 feet. Good. Celebrate the 20 feet. Go back home, do something they want to do, or, do something fun, take the pressure off, and then go out and get your workout later. Like, don't make that your pressurized, we're going to do this as a family and I'm going to get my workout in.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing to remember is, if you think about like bike weight, right? Like a children's bike is probably going to weigh around like 20 pounds, unless you're going for like the super baller model. Most kids' bikes.
I would up that. It's closer to like 30, 35 pounds.
They're so heavy. And if you think about like a normal kid that's like 60 pounds, say, it's literally half their body weight. And we're on our, 15-pound bikes. And they're like, why can't you go faster? And it's like, wait a second. This math.
Bike with like super light wheels. Hey, pedal faster. Yeah, no. That's exactly it. And you don't like, I was lucky to work at Bicycle Colorado for a few years, like 4 or 5 maybe, where I just taught bike safety at schools, which was really cool. That was a super fun job. But we would haul in, a trailer full of trek bikes, small to grown-up size, to do bike rodeos with kids and bike safety and that kind of thing. And I tell you what, like, I was ripped. And you want to know why? Because I was lifting kids' bikes all day. Like that really, that drilled it home for me. Like, these are heavy bikes. These are little baby kids, and they are really doing their best. And, you really have to put yourself in their position of, sometimes even like when the kids are little, you're squatting down by them a lot. And whether you have kids or not, like, this is a fun exercise. Like, next time you're on the trail and it's kind of rocky or whatever, like even mildly rocky, get off your bike and squat down. And you're going to see really quickly, like, what they see and how scary things can be. Even curbs, even trees, like even a gate, like you come to a gate with a kid or a new cyclist, they're always going to hit the gate. They always freak out. They're always going to hit the tree. They're always going to do those things. And because they're new to it, they're nervous. It seems huge. It seems big. So it's that same principle of, if you were riding with somebody that had never ridden before, don't assume that just because they're your kids, they have it in their blood.
Yeah.
It's not built in their DNA quite yet. Maybe Vanderpool's, but other people's maybe not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if your name starts with like Vander or something, you probably are going to be okay, but
Dutch or French. Leg up.
Yeah, otherwise. So we have the article that you helped me write over on the Shred Girls website, and I want to kind of go through some of the ones you said. And the first headline we have is "Make it fun," but I loved your first line in it, which is, "If cycling is a passion of yours, beware, this can backfire."
Yeah. Any local bike race, and you'll see that. Colorado is like you said, it's a haven for Olympic athletes. And it's where you go if you're going to train. And if you're just a normal person, then that can be, kind of off-putting. And then if you're a kid and you go, we have great children's programs, we have great juniors programs here, almost to a point where I would say it's too great, because a normal kid shows up with a normal bike, and instantaneously, this practically a tour bus comes out and like folds out this, layer of beautiful bikes that, cost more than someone's house. That's intimidating. And it's kind of ridiculous. So I love that those options are there, and certainly they serve a purpose for many kids and many families and just the racing scene in general. But at the same time, like, keep it fun, keep it normal, that any kid can come up and say, yeah, this looks fun. Mm-hmm. And then screamed at by either their parent or, worse yet, another racer that's on the course that's yelling at the kid to get off or yelling at the kid for whatever. I mean, people can be jerks. And sometimes I think in higher level athletics, it's so far removed from reality that it's like you would get punched in the face for saying that anywhere else. But I guess it's okay, 60-year-old, white guy that really wants to get your PR on this lap, so it has to be balanced. And I think just anybody, parent or not, can help with that. It does need to be fun. It does need to be accessible, and it shouldn't just be for the elite, because bike riding is forever and bike racing flatly is not,
Yes.
So it's like anything. I'm not going to tell a kid that, oh yeah, you're going to go pro in football forever. No, you're not. No one is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Spirit of fun and athleticism forever. That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you like actually start thinking about it, it's like, okay, if we have, 100 kids out riding bikes, what one of them is maybe going to have a legitimate professional career in cycling.
Right.
And the other 99, if we can keep them riding and they can, grow to be adults who love riding versus
and who are fit and healthy and who maybe, take away one car trip a week. There's all sorts of benefits, obviously, we all know with cycling. And the more fun it is, the more long-term those benefits will hang on.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And I mean, I love it. So that leads to kind of the next point about making it normal. So I know you've been a big bike commuter and an advocate of bike commuting. talk about that in terms of, family doing bike commuting type stuff.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, again, my time with Bicycle Colorado taught me that the stats for, and if you look up Google it, anything like that now, the stats for kids that ride bikes just for fun these days is really low, or just for transportation. And it also is for adults. I mean, we're many places, depending on where you live. If it's suburbia, you're trained to get in your car and go, 1 mile. It doesn't matter. It's a car centric where we're at in the US, I think is in general is car centric. We're getting better, certainly, but showing, your kids or your neighbors or whoever it is that you're going to get out on your bike to go do X. It doesn't necessarily mean you're all clad in your kit 100% of the time. I tend to actually wear a kit because I sweat a lot. So I'm not really
fair.
Like jeans type of person. But when, you are going out with your kids or you're saying, hey, we're going to go do this, and you don't automatically get in the car, it's that kind of that 5 mile radius rule where think about what's in your 5 mile radius that you can do with your bike. There's a lot. And we tried to emulate that with our girls by, first of all, moving. We moved to a place where we knew we could do that, because where we were before, when they were pretty little, we couldn't. It wasn't easy. It was sprawl. It was very car oriented, and it wasn't for us. It just wasn't. And so we, deliberately talked about when they were little, why we were moving. And, you try to explain to a kindergartner and, a third grader of why you're moving from their friends. That's hard. And so we told them, very much why. And then we put it into action, of saying, here's where we're going to move. These are all the great things we can do. Our place that we're at now is about 1 mile or 2 away from when we made this big move to Golden. So it's still bikeable. It's just up a bigger hill now, so we all have to suffer a little more. But
well, as they get older, you can increase the hills. You'll be like living on a mountain in 10 years.
We're going to go to the top of Evans and build a house.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was great because we were...
Oh, I love it. The dog just realized there's a UPS truck in the driveway. It's been here for like 5 minutes, and she just realized it.
She's like, hey, what are you doing?
Hang on a second.
Yeah, so we were, a couple blocks from the library. We were a couple blocks from the rec center. We were, about a half mile from our church, like from downtown. It was grand. From the school, we could ride now to when they were little. And that was really important to me because, working for Bicycle Colorado, I was telling everybody, all these kids, like, yeah, bike to school, do it. All these parents, stop getting in the car. You could walk 2 or 3 blocks. And then what was I doing? I was driving to every school to teach them that. And I wasn't biking with my own kids. Mm-hmm. So that made me just feel horrible as a person. So I wanted to change that. And it worked. It really did. And it served the purpose for what we were looking for with our lives. It changed our lives. I mean, we ditched a car. We were a 1-car family until this year. So we were a 1-car family for like 8 years with 2 little kids, and we made it work. And it was a challenge. It was a fun challenge. It wasn't this is going to be so horrible, I have to ride to the grocery store. They would hear my husband and I talking and bargaining it, like, okay, you can have the car for this. We're going to go here, but no, I can totally do this. And, sometimes there'd be funny moments where we would have worked it out to where we're like, wait, then no one has the car. Wait, no, we can't do that. Actually, that's no one. We can't bike there because there's no one to pick us up. We'd kind of do the math and at dinner for the next day. Mm-hmm. And it's a fun family solution. And I believe that with commuting, in my advocacy heart, that it can be so fun and challenging and just make your brain and body work in ways that being in a car can't even compare. So I really want to drill that into my kids. And I really tell them, like, hey, later, wherever you go, whatever, if you choose to do college, if you choose to go, you'll have lots of choices where you travel, where you live. Choose wisely, because it will dictate your life. And if you're in a place where you really cannot get out your door and ride your bike, you got to be okay with that. And you're going to have to make that work. But it sure is a good life if you can swing integrating activity into just your normal daily routine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I remember when I first went to school realizing that it was going to be so much faster for me to start riding to classes versus taking the bus everywhere because the bus would get stuck in traffic and stuff. And that's honestly a big chunk of what got me into cycling and triathlon and everything was like, oh, okay, I have to pull my bike out of, like my bike that I've had since I was 10 years old is
Yeah.
what came with me to college.
That's awesome.
Of course, then I had to get like a cool fixed gear bike because, style points. But at the time, it was my old Diamondback mountain bike, and that thing got me around campus my whole freshman year, and
Oh,
it
that's
was
awesome.
it was a game changer. I was like beating people to class by like 10, 15 minutes from leaving at the same point and going to the same
Yes.
building.
That's the thing I think that people don't, I always try to tell people, like, if you're geared towards competition and you like bike racing, like, it's got nothing on commuting.
Totally.
If you love that, you're going to really love not, just applying that to the racing scene. Like, it's a race in and of itself every single day. And it's preparation, and it's, knowing the weather and knowing, your own limits. It's so good for you on many levels. And yeah, for college kids, I think everybody should be required. Every adult, I think, should be required to try to commute like once a month, wherever. Like, one thing would make the world a better place because it gives you empathy. It gives you all those things, the confidence, and then also too, I, for better or for worse, I don't have a fear of cars. I've been hit by one and had many, many close calls. But the thing is the more of us that are out there, the better it's going to get, the more awareness we'll have. And I have no problem training on the roads or riding on the roads. And it's because of my commuting time, and has built my skills in so many other disciplines. I'm a better mountain biker, cyclocrosser, all of those road racer. Well, I don't race road anymore, but I mean, road rider. I'm a safer cyclist. I'm a more efficient cyclist, because commuting teaches you that. You have to, especially if you're commuting somewhere where the weather's not perfect 100% of the time. You get some really solid skills, commuting in the snow.
Yeah, definitely. And okay, so this is actually kind of a good segue into a question I wanted to ask. What about the parents who are just terrified of, the potential for crashing or, God forbid, cars on the road are are dangerous and can be dangerous. So it's kind of terrifying, like letting your kid ride. How do you move past that nervousness?
Yeah, and that's a legitimate fear. I mean, it really is, and I get that as a parent for sure. And the world is not 100% safe, and we always say in our house, like, X is better than sitting on the couch. If you fell, you crashed, whatever it is. I mean, this isn't for, for little kids, but of course I'm going to die someday. And, I'd rather die like doing something I love and going out in a big, fantastic way rather than wilting away. So that's kind of the premise behind my, motivation is like, look, no way. I'm not going to parent based on fear. I can't.
Yeah.
That's too ridiculous because there's too much out there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the counterpoint to it too is, the stats on, childhood obesity and, all of the health problems that are linked to inactivity are much scarier to me than the occasional crash on a mountain bike.
Oh yeah. And depression and all of those things. So, if you're talking mountain bike, that's, you just have to sometimes close your eyes as a parent. It's the same thing I do. I think it's because I'm a parent and I feel this way. Like, even if I'm watching like enduro racing or my friends doing stuff, I have to turn away sometimes because it's like I know the potential and it hurts like my mommy's stomach, like, oh God, I can't watch.
Yep.
But that's fine. For road, it really does, of course there can be accidents and incidents and crashes and people can hit you and all those things. However, a lot of that can be minimized with proper education. So that's where the practicing with your child from a really small age is so important. It's so important. And not just, of course you're starting out on the bike path or in a park or something, but then you really have to get out there and you have to, the trip from our house to the library, where it was only like 3 or 4 blocks away, was the most petrified I'd been as a parent probably forever. I mean, I can still remember that, where I had both daughters and it's like, okay, you have to pick. Who are you going to be behind? Who's going to be, we'd always sandwich our younger one in the middle. Well, then the older one would just take off because she wanted to show how great she was. And then, suddenly you're 4 blocks spanned or 3 blocks spanned, and there's 4-way stops. And this is downtown Golden. This isn't like city. So you practicing those things and making sure that your kids know all the little tricks and tips. If you think about everything you do as a cyclist in the span of, a block, next time you're riding, like in 1 mile, just try to mentally note everything you have to watch out for. Well, as a parent, you just have to verbalize that. You just have to tell them, okay, I'm doing this because, all right, hey, I'm really looking out for brake lights right now because turns out sidewalks are super dangerous for cyclists, or if you're coming out of your garage or coming in your garage, there's people that are really want to get home fast to see their families. They miss their mommy, so there's all these things that you can story as you're riding. And you have to do that because, if you just turn a kid loose and you're like, have at it, like our parents did, I think, in the 80s. Yep. My parents didn't smoke, but I think of them like just smoking cigarettes, like, go get it.
I know, right?
For sure. But it's also a helicopter parenting world right now. And I understand why people are, concerned and why parents would say, oh, I could never do that. I can see that side of it a little bit, but I would just urge, like, push through it. Your kids can do it. And you showing them that you have that confidence in them means all the world. And sure, you're going to have close calls. Oh, we had so many close calls when we were going out as kids. I mean, with our kids. I mean, we had a 4th of July one where it was just like a comic, epic disaster after disaster in the span of like 3 miles. I mean, we all got home and it's like we all just sat on the couch like, we've almost been in a train wreck, but that's okay. We joke about it now and we learned from it. And we learned when someone says go, they don't mean, every cyclist does it different. When you ride with a pack, you'll see your friends. You'll always have that one friend that's like, I can make it. And they gun it, right? Yep. Then you always have the friend that's like, no way. The light isn't even yellow, but I'm going to stop right now because that's just what makes me feel good. Kids are the same way. And then you mix in adults with different strategies. And it's just hilarious. And so you just have to be okay with the hilarious disaster of being a parent and let it roll. And it will pay off. It pays off.
Yeah. Talking about practicing skills and stuff reminds me, in Namur in Belgium, they actually have, like, right by the famous cyclocross course, there's just like a random children's park. But in the park, they actually have like a whole section that's like basketball court size, basically. That's like a miniature city that's meant, like, it's designed for like teaching bike safety.
Oh,
so it's got all these like tiny roads and tiny stop signs. It's the cutest. Awesome. It's adorable. Unbelievable.
And you can do the same thing. Like, I think in that article, I mean, because I worked at Bicycle Colorado, I got really good at sidewalk chalking, right? Like black tops. Mm-hmm. You can create those same things. Like, if your kids are really little and the thought of saying, like, let's go ride bikes, if that doesn't first ignite them, that's okay. There's lots of different other ways that you can do it. It's like, instead of saying we're going to go for a bike ride and you put on your, Lycra and your kit and all that, maybe it's we are going to go do an obstacle course. Like, you see the difference? Ooh. The difference is pretty, or we're going on a scavenger hunt. Okay. It's just in how you phrase it. I have to go to the store on my bike. No, I get to go get my library books on my bike. Who wants to come with me? It's just a different way of thinking about it and implementing it. And kids will go crazy for it if you're going crazy for it in a fun way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is kind of leading me to, you now have teenage girls who are riding. Where do you fall on the, like, when to start with, like, racing or performance and stuff? Like, when do you think about, like, looking for a coach or, like, that next level? Or are you just kind of letting them develop on their own and, letting that sort of sort itself out? Because I've heard so many differing things from so many different parents, and I have my personal takes on it, but I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, good question. So we have been very anti organized sports, my husband and I, from the get-go. And we joke now, we're
Amen.
Like, yeah, probably to the detriment maybe of our kids, but either way, like, I'm good with it because it just wasn't for us. And not to say that it isn't for other people, it just wasn't for us. So because of that, even with racing, even though my husband and I did it, we did it at a really, like, low key level. My husband was way more serious about it than I ever was. And so we tried to keep that easy and fun, and at one point we offered, hey, do you want to jump in on a cyclocross race with us? And that was when they were, I don't know, like middle school, elementary school still. And that probably sealed the deal for not liking racing for my younger daughter. She lifted her big old heavy mountain bike over a couple barriers and she was dead last and she was being passed by all these super fast kids. And
yep,
that was probably it for her. Whereas our older one was like, that was fun. That was all right. So, it went from there where we just dabbled. We strictly dabbled. When our older daughter wanted to do mountain bike club last year for the high school, it was just real easy. We tried to deliberately not say, talk about training. We figured she was getting the adequate training if she wanted. And then if she wanted to put in extra, she certainly could. And where we live is right at the base of a very popular mountain bike trail. And so she often saw kids in her team that were riding, or we'd see them at like 5 a.m. I'd seen some of these kids. And I would say, hey, I saw Toby out this morning. And she'd be like, good for Toby. She wanted no part. But she also saw towards the end of the season where she was in relation to some of those kids. And lo and behold, this year she was like, I really want to do better. She came up with her plan. She kind of came up with I think I want to do this, this, and this. And we're like, that sounds good. You want to race through the spring. You might want to, if you're going to do swimming, we kind of talked about what it realistically would be for her to want to do better and what that meant. And then just this spring, I was helping a friend put on a women's, intro to women's racing clinic. And Carrie Higgins we had there, we had Meredith Miller, and we had Katie Compton. And so, they were all kind of giving their opinions and talking about training and things. And our 16-year-old asked me, at the end of the clinic while we were all just standing around, she's like, do you think Katie would coach me? And I was thinking well, yeah. I said, are you serious? Is this what you'd like to do? And luckily Katie's a friend of mine and she knows our family really well. She knows my lack of training really well. I had her design a coaching plan for me once, and this is how bad I guess how I am. Not bad, it's just how I am. That I followed it for like a week. Who gets a cyclocross training plan from Katie Compton and can only follow it for a week? Me.
I would have been the exact same. I've said I'm uncoachable so many times.
Uncoachable. So she knows that about me and she kind of giggled, but she that's happening right now. So Bella is now on her 2nd month of coaching and she's digging it. It's going so well. And I like that. I don't know anything about it. So first of all, it's fantastic. I couldn't give you a plan, honey. So yeah, you should have a plan from someone that knows what they're doing, especially Katie Compton. But also then we're not responsible for her to get out there. She knows what it costs. She knows the effort that Katie's putting into it. She knows Katie as a person and knows that she is busy and she's got things going on and she doesn't want to let her down. So I think where it comes into play is I would suggest letting your kids lead. Do not sign your kids up for a coach at the age of 11. Unless they are a phenom and it's all they want to do. Like I said, I see some of these kids that are riding at 5 a.m. all through the summer. And they would be the type of kid that would say, at the age of 12, I really want to do this. This is something I really am chasing because I love it.
Yeah.
But an average kid is probably not gonna, it's just gonna be not a waste of your money by any means, but I just think there's so many different places that you could put the time and energy that would be more appropriate for younger kids. And then I also had a friend that I met through when I was with Feedback Sports when we were in Belgium for cyclocross Masters Worlds. And he is a team manager for Lotto Soudal. And his son races, world tour team. And he's seen it all. He's been a team manager for years, 20, 30 years. And we got into this conversation and he said, even his son who has seen it all and he knew his son's potential, he still held him off from racing at a higher level until he was late high school. He's like, I wouldn't let him train. I wouldn't let him do these things because it's too much for your child's body. They've got so much going on in their little bodies and their little minds and their decision-making process and all that, to throw that on them without a lot of loving guidance, I think could be hard. So yeah, that was kind of a long-winded question.
I love it. I think when you were mentioning like the up at 5 a.m. 11-year-olds, I think with them, the coach would probably actually be more important for holding them back because they're probably like accidentally overtraining.
And get some nachos, kid. Like, you know, I mean, you don't really have to tell kids that anymore, I don't think. But still, you know, yeah, like that would almost be and that's been good for Bella too, to see with Katie, you know, she's like, oh, well, this week's really light, but, you know, then to talk about why that is and better be ready for next week. And the difference with her too has been awesome to see because she's very much like me in a lot of ways. Like she's scattered, like she's tornadoes into, not scattered like mine, but she's like tornadoes into the kitchen, grabs stuff and the cabinets are all open and then she's out. Like she's just a flurry of, you know, from one thing to the next and just not very methodical, I guess. And so this has been really good for her to say, okay, well, I better go to bed. Like I have this tomorrow, you know, like she's really policing herself, which is wonderful because we don't have to, and nor would I want to. I don't want to tell her what she needs to eat right now. I don't want to tell her because I think that's damaging too. I mean, I hope that she makes healthy choices, and that's what being, you know, an athlete or a cyclist or any, you know, healthy person is. But she's seeing the ramifications directly now of benefit and if she doesn't or if she does, which is wonderful. That's what we wanted her to find.
Yeah. And I think what's great about that is it's not you saying, oh, have you done your training today? You're just letting her, if she did it, that's great. Not on you.
And it's been fun too, because then it's like, can I tag along? Can I tag along with you, honey? And that's a huge change, you know, as a parent, where it's like, dang, can I come do this with you? And I might not be able to keep up. Like she's to the point now where I can't keep up sometimes on the mountain bike, particularly if I've had like a couple days of something, I can feel it. And she's putting the pressure on me. And that is wonderful. Like that's a wonderful moment as a parent.
That's awesome. And then the other thing I was thinking, as far as coaching goes, I think maybe the better place for parents to be putting focus would be if they're not super skilled. Like I know for me, I could never really adequately teach great mountain biking skills. However, my husband happens to be a mountain bike skills coach. So I would be inclined to let him handle that. So I feel like instead of like signing a kid up for a coach that's going to do a training plan type thing, you're better off getting more like skills and going to clinics and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Heck yes. Like that. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that I think even for anybody, you know, I always tell people like, no one's above a clinic. No one's above a skills session. Like there's so many times that you would, and a lot of women that I know, you know, it's like, and not women specifically, but, you know, my female friends like, oh, I could never do that. I'm like, well, yeah, you actually could. And here's what you would do to get there. You know, like this is taking a mountain bike skills clinic for me personally changed my life completely. Cyclocross clinic with Katie Compton changed it so much. And that's like one day, you know, or a half day or 2 hours that's going to make the rest of your cycling life so much more fun. And yeah, absolutely. Clinics are my best friend. And, you know, most times people think like, I don't know where to find it. Like if you have that in your network, spread the word. I mean, social media is bad for lots of things, but it's fantastic for that. You know,
Definitely.
I mean, someone just in our town, you know, reached out and said, hey, we've got this girls clinic going on this weekend. Can you spread the word? Yes, absolutely. Like I can't actually make it. I'm doing a different event, but my daughter's going. She texted her friends, like the high school mountain bike team put it out. I mean, there's so many things out there, and they don't have to be the most dialed either. You know, if you're good at a certain skill and you think that it would be advantageous for someone else to learn it, put that out to your group of friends or say, hey, I'm going to go work on X skill tomorrow from 10 to noon. Anybody want to join me? We're going to have some fun. Like that can be a clinic. You know, it doesn't have to be a sign your waiver, you know, that kind of thing. You have to be a little more careful if it's not, you know, your own child and your group of friends. But, you know, look around and find one, or ask local bike shops. If you're a parent and you're looking for this, ask a local bike shop. Oftentimes they're the ones putting it on, or they're helping out with it, or they'll be able to tell you where to go. Hey, here's the team manager. Here's the contact. This is who you should reach out to. So it's just this wonderful network that cycling, I think, has, or running or triathlon, that once you ask, there's so much information and wonderful people out there. don't be intimidated to just reach in and find someone that knows. Like if you see someone in your neighborhood that looks like they know what they're doing, stop them and ask. They're going to love to talk to you about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And then, so one of our other things that you mentioned in that article is talking with your child and, more importantly, listening to your child. I think this is probably where a lot of people fall off, and you maybe have a fair number of kids quitting because of this lack. And I mean, also, it's to me, the best times I've ever had chatting with my dad have been, in the past few years, either riding together or he rides while I run and he rides next to me and we talk for hours, and it's the best.
I love that. Yeah, it is the best. I mean, when you're, like I said, there's those moments, those slow going moments when they're really little. And that's when you just have to you almost just have to put your shoulders up to your ears, take a deep breath and just go, okay, this is fine. This is where I need to be right now. Mm-hmm. And what are they trying to tell me? And, bike riding's kind of hard. One of my the older daughter's just like, I don't really want to talk right now at this point, if we're climbing up Lookout. And I think
that's fair.
We're to you. I don't either. You're right. But they will bring things up that once you've gotten your rhythm, right? It might take 20 minutes. It might take an hour when they're older. But once you've got your rhythm, so many things come up. Like last summer, just both my daughters were commuting it worked out to where I was commuting to work, and on the way to work was the swimming pool. So for my older daughter, she was doing early morning swim practice. And then it was the workplace meetup for my younger daughter who was doing trail maintenance. So for her summer job. So it was a beautiful summer and it was our favorite summer as a family. And I believe this is part of the reason why, because I could ride 4 miles, drop off my older daughter for swimming, drop off, so to speak. I'd ride with her just for the workout. Mm-hmm. Then I'd come home, ride the same pretty much path with my older daughter, drop her off at work. She'd lock up her bike, and then I would go on to work. And I had then, 30 minutes of undivided attention with each of my daughters on their own, one-on-one every day, practically every day. And sometimes we'd switch. Sometimes my husband would do it, just on his way to work out or whatever. Or they'd go on their own. But, it was a priceless summer because it was quiet. It was beautiful. We just had time to talk. It was mm-hmm. summer. Nobody was worrying about homework or after school activities or any of that stuff. And so, it was truly a really massive gift when I looked back on it. The first couple weeks, of course, it was just come on, get up, we got to go. And everybody was all grumpy, and one day my older daughter threw a fit because it was foggy. And she's like, drive? And I was like, no, who do you think you're talking to? I was like, yeah, can I drive when it's pounding snow? And we kind of get into these little arguments where she's like, well, that's not even fair. You're a grown up and you do it for work. And I'm like, well, that's not even fair. You're a kid and you don't have to do it for work. I totally resorted to a teenager myself, but then we'd giggle later. I'm like, hey, I'd send her a text like, hey, I'm really proud of you for going this morning. I'm really proud of you for getting up. Or to my younger daughter, I'm really proud of you for riding your bike with your huge backpack, your water bottle, your hard helmet, everything she needed for work. And then she was going to go build trail all day and then bike back home, filthy. So, those are the kinds of character building happy moments that I had with my kids that, gosh, if you just give them that opportunity, they will open up. They will bloom. They will be so confident, and it's just so neat to see them grow.
Ugh, I'm just sitting here imagining this. I'm like, I want your life.
You didn't want it the night of the 4th of July when we all almost died, but aside from that,
yeah. Yeah. Maybe not the foggy morning either, or the snowy mornings, but on the sunny, quiet mornings, that sounds great. I think the other thing that's kind of interesting is, so my dad's a really quiet guy. So I think this is maybe a flipped situation, I guess, for, most parents have quiet kids. My dad's a really quiet guy. So sometimes, if I'm running and he's riding, I get really irritated if we're just being quiet for a long time, because I'm not running with headphones in. I have nothing to listen to. I'm just bored and annoyed. So before I would run, I would actually think through a list of conversations to have like
That's brilliant.
goofy stuff. Like, what are we going to do if there's a zombie apocalypse? And I am not kidding. That occupied like 7 miles.
Which makes me giggle because that's really something I always refer to. And my younger daughter drives her crazy. I'll be like, if there was and she'll like hold her hand up. She's like, zombie apocalypse? Yes, I would go over there. I know.
Yep, we have a game plan. Yeah, it's great.
That's a really good point. As parents or just in any relationship, it's kind of like before Thanksgiving. Sometimes I seriously will look up like conversational topics. Like you forget sometimes that it is hard to talk to people or everybody's in their own little world. And just because you're going to be side by side with somebody for a certain portion of time doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect or it's going to be, this like blissful happiness. There's going to be awkward moments. So it's like, as a parent, think of those things that you really, I guess, that keep you up at night sometimes, like wondering if, and you'll figure out little like pointers and topics that you can kind of dig in and then they'll open up, hopefully or not, but at least you've tried. And even if they know, your dad, even though he's quiet, he's loving that time with you. And so it's regardless of the conversation that does or doesn't happen, you are spending time together outside of a screen, outside of a box, it's just time together that couldn't be replaced with anything else.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that leads perfectly into this last point that you had in the article, which is to exemplify joy. And I love this because, how many parents do you know who are also masters athletes who, let's be honest, maybe don't finish races looking as joyous as they would like to, or, pound it out on Zwift and like finish like stalking upstairs from the basement looking miserable because they missed their numbers or something.
Yeah. It is important to, like we talked about at the very beginning, like it has to be fun. And if it's not for you personally, maybe take a step back and think like, why is that? And try to remember what initially drew you to this sport to begin with. And those are the things that are going to pop up and be so relevant for your kids. And they will remember you stalking off the race course and being mad because you got a flat, or they will remember you, handling it with dignity. They will remember that you were doing a little woohoo on the trail because you tried something and you nailed it versus like you hit your lactic acid threshold something, like those are the things that are going to make a difference. They could care less if you are winning, if you're at the top of your game, all that, if you are acting like a jerk or if you're acting like it's a chore. So find what makes it fun for you and talk about it. Like just telling your kids what made you happy. I would tell them these stories of, and then I flipped over my handlebars because I didn't see the curb for the snow and my underwear fell out of my bag and it was hilarious. Like those are the things that would make them think like, I want to do that. The person driving by me seeing that happen probably wasn't like, wow, I really want to be that lady, losing her stuff in the curb in a snowstorm. But I tell you what, like you have to get up and laugh over things like that because it is flipping funny. And so if you don't find the joy in those things, you got to find a different sport and find something else that you want to teach your kids. Because if you don't find joy in it, they're not going to either. If I read a bedtime story with anger just because I could read it the fastest, I doubt my kids would want to listen to it. And so it's the same thing with cycling. Like you're not just trying to get through it. Don't get through it. It's all the nuances through the way that are going to make your kids love it.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. I think that's a perfect note to end on. So if anyone has any questions for you or anything, you share where people can find you on the interwebs.
Oh, absolutely. You can reach out Twitter. I'm really fast to respond there. I'm at Cranky Mommies. You'll see all the adventures that I have with my kids because they aren't on Twitter. They are on Instagram. So I do have to watch what I can also use that to shame them as well, into cleaning things up because that is a public forum. But yeah, so I'm at Cranky Mommies and I'm always happy to answer questions, bite questions and learn more from everybody else. That's the beauty again of social media is I can connect with people doing this all over the world and we can share what works and what doesn't and laugh about it, spilling our underwear out of our commuter bag, and our coffee cup all over the place. So reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for tuning into the Consummate Athlete podcast. You can check out my stuff over at theoutdooredit.com or by following me on Instagram and Twitter at Molly J. Herford. And you can check out Peter's coaching, training plans, blogs, all that fun stuff over at smartathlete.ca or by following him on Twitter and Instagram at Peter Glassford. And if you want to support this show and other awesome podcasts, please check out wideanglepodium.com for show info, other podcasts, bonus content, and to become a donating member so you can get all of that rad behind the scenes content and help keep shows like this on the air. And lastly, if you're enjoying this podcast and all the information that we're bringing to you every single week, do us a solid and pop into iTunes to leave us a rating and review. It takes you about 2 seconds. You can do it on your computer, you can do it on your phone, and it really helps us out. Thanks so much, and we will see you next week.